Formula One has spent decades building its image as the pinnacle of motorsport. Clean competition, fair play, technological excellence. But buried in the sport's history are cars so controversial, so game-changing, that F1 would rather you never heard their names. These aren't just rule violations. These are machines that expose the dark side of the sport, where innovation meets corruption, where genius meets greed, and where winning at any cost nearly destroyed Formula One itself. Tonight, we're uncovering 4 cars that F1 desperately wants erased from history. From ingenious engineering that was too good to be legal, to scandals that reached the highest levels of the sport. By the end, you'll understand why some victories are worth more than championships, and why others cost everything. Let's start with a car so advanced, it was banned before it ever turned a wheel in anger. 1981. Colin Chapman's Lotus team was struggling. The ground effect era had made cars incredibly fast, but brutally difficult to drive. Drivers were getting beaten to death by rock-hard suspension needed to keep the cars glued to the track. Chapman, the mad genius of F1, had a solution that would change everything. The Lotus 88 looked normal from the outside, but Chapman had built something revolutionary, a car within a car, 2 separate chassis. The inner chassis held the driver in comfort with soft suspension. The outer chassis, rock hard, managed the aerodynamics. It was brilliant. It was legal under the technical regulations. It was also terrifying to every other team on the grid. When the 88s showed up to the 1981 San Jaime Grand Prix, the other teams panicked. This wasn't just innovation, this was a potential season killer. If it worked, Lotus would dominate. Everyone else would be obsolete overnight. So they did what F1 teams do when they can't beat you on track. They beat you in the steward's room. Bernie Ecclestone, then representing the other teams, led the charge. The car was banned not for breaking rules, but for not being in the spirit of the regulations. A phrase that would haunt F1 for decades. Chapman was devastated. He'd spent millions developing the 88th. Worse, he knew it worked. In private tests, the car was seconds faster than anything else. Nigel Mansell later said it was the best car he'd ever driven. The Lotus 88 never raced. Chapman died 2 years later, some say, from the stress of watching his masterpiece destroyed by politics. The car that could have revolutionized F1 was erased from history before it began. But this was just the beginning of F1's war against innovation. If the Lotus 88 was banned before it could prove itself, the Brabham BT46B was banned because it proved itself too well. 1978. Gordon Murray, Brabham's designer, was watching the Lotus 79 dominate with ground effect. But Murray had a problem. Brabham's engine supplier, Alfa Romeo, had a flat 12 engine that didn't work with ground effect tunnels. While everyone else was sucking air under their cars, Brabham was stuck in the past. So Murray did what any genius would do. He cheated, legally. The BT46B had a massive fan on the back, supposedly for cooling. But Murray had done the math. That fan didn't just cool the engine, it sucked the car to the track with the force of a vacuum cleaner. Instant ground effect without the tunnels. The other team screamed. The fan was obviously for aerodynamics, not cooling. But Murray had covered his tracks perfectly. The fan was connected to the engine. It did provide cooling. And nothing in the rules said you couldn't have aerodynamic benefits from cooling systems. The stewards had no choice. The car was legal, June 17, 1978, Swedish Grand Prix. Niki Lauda qualified the fan car on pole by over a second. In the race, he disappeared into the distance, winning by 34 seconds. It wasn't even close. But here's where the story gets dark. That night, Bernie Ecclestone made a deal. Brabham would voluntarily withdraw the fan car from future races. In exchange, the Swedish Grand Prix victory would stand, and Brabham would get considerations for future seasons. The official reason? In the interests of the sport. The real reason? The other teams threatened to boycott if the fan car continued racing. Lauda's victory stood, but the BT46B never raced again. Murray was forced to destroy his creation to keep the peace. The fan car had worked too well for its own good. Years later, Murray admitted the truth. The fan was always about aerodynamics. The cooling was just clever cover. But by then, it didn't matter. The car that could have changed F1 forever had been sacrificed to politics. By 1998, McLaren had perfected the art of legal cheating. Their MP4/13 looked conventional, but hidden in plain sight was technology so advanced it took the FIA months to figure out what was happening. The car's secret was in the wings. During scrutineering, they passed every test. Rigid, legal, perfect. But at 200 miles per hour, something magical happened. The wings flexed, changing their angle, reducing drag on the straights while maintaining downforce in the corners. Adrian Newey, McLaren's aerodynamicist, had found the loophole of the century. The rules said wings couldn't move. They didn't say anything about flexing under load. Mika Häkkinen dominated the early part of the season. The MP4/13 was untouchable on fast circuits, gaining massive straight-line speed advantages. Other teams couldn't understand how McLaren was so much faster. Then Ferrari's engineers figured it out. What followed was a technical arms race that nearly destroyed the sport. Teams started building increasingly flexible wings, each trying to outbend the others. Cars became unpredictable, dangerous. Drivers complained about handling that change dramatically between qualifying and race conditions. The FIA was in crisis. They couldn't prove the wings were illegal because they passed all static tests. But they knew the sport was heading toward chaos. The solution came in the form of new tests, dynamic load testing that simulated racing conditions. Suddenly, McLaren's wings failed inspection. The MP4/13 was neutered mid-season. But here's the twist. McLaren had anticipated this. They'd already developed a backup wing design. While other teams scrambled to redesign their cars, McLaren simply switched configurations. Häkkinen won the 1998 championship, but the flexible wing controversy changed F1 forever. The FIA introduced increasingly complex tests to prevent flexing, leading to an ongoing arms race between engineers and regulators that continues today. The MP4/13 proved that in F1, the best cheats are the ones that force the rules to change. Everything we've covered so far was just preparation for this. The scandal that nearly destroyed Formula One's credibility forever. 2004. Michael Schumacher was dominating in the Ferrari F2004, winning 13 of 18 races. The car was perfect, fast, reliable, unbeatable. Ferrari claimed it was just superior engineering. The FIA agreed. The media celebrated another Ferrari masterpiece. They were all lying. The truth didn't emerge until 2007, 3 years after Schumacher's retirement. A disgruntled Ferrari engineer leaked documents that revealed the F2004's real secret: an illegal traction control system so sophisticated it had fooled the FIA for an entire season. The system was hidden in the engine management software, disguised as anti-stall protection. During races, it provided perfect traction control, giving Schumacher an enormous advantage in wet conditions and tight corners. The car wasn't just fast, it was artificially enhanced. But this wasn't just about one car. The leaked documents revealed something far worse. The FIA had known about the system since mid-2004. Charlie Whiting, the FIA's technical director, had discovered the illegal software during a routine inspection. What happened next exposed the corruption at F1's heart. Instead of disqualifying Ferrari, the FIA made a deal. Ferrari would remove the system for the final races of 2004, and in exchange the FIA would keep the discovery secret. Schumacher's championship would stand. Ferrari's reputation would remain intact. The cover-up worked perfectly, until it didn't. When the story broke in 2007, the fallout was catastrophic. Journalists demanded Schumacher's 2004 championship be stripped. Rival teams threatened legal action. The FIA's credibility was in ruins. Ferrari's response was chilling. They claimed the system was legal under their interpretation of the rules. When pressed for details, they cited proprietary technology and refused to elaborate. The FIA backed them up. Charlie Whiting, the same man who had discovered the illegal system, now claimed it had been borderline legal and that Ferrari had cooperated fully with the investigation. The 2004 championship was never stripped. The F2004 was never officially banned. The scandal was quietly buried under layers of technical jargon and legal threats. But the damage was done. The F2004 had exposed the truth about Formula One. That at the highest levels, winning wasn't about being the best. It was about who had the best lawyers, the most political influence, and the deepest pockets. Michael Schumacher retired as a 7-time world champion. Ferrari celebrated their technical excellence. The FIA praised their fair enforcement of the rules. And the F2004, the car that proved Formula One's biggest championship was built on a lie, was quietly erased from official history. 4 cars, 4 scandals, 4 examples of how Formula One has spent decades burying its most controversial moments. The Lotus 88 showed us that innovation can be too threatening to survive. The Brabham BT46B proved that even legal genius can be sacrificed to politics. The McLaren MP4/13 demonstrated that the best cheats force the rules to evolve. But the Ferrari F2004 revealed something far darker, that at the highest levels of Formula One, truth is negotiable, History is rewritable, and some victories are worth more than integrity. These cars were banned, hidden, or forgotten, not because they were failures, but because they were too successful. They exposed the gaps between F1's public image and private reality. The next time you watch a Grand Prix, remember, for every car you see on track, there's another that F1 desperately hopes you'll never hear about. Because in Formula One, the most dangerous thing isn't speed, it's the truth. Which of these banned F1 cars surprised you the most? Do you think the FIA made the right call in each case, or should some of these ghosts of F1 have been allowed to race? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the untold stories of motorsport.